Hello and welcome to this edition of The Rest is Entertainment with me, Marina Hyde.
And me, Richard Osman. Hello, everybody. Hello, Marina.
How are you?
I'm all right. Now, what are we talking about this week? We've got some fun coming up this week, some unusual items.
We're going to talk about the biggest TV show you've probably never heard of.
We're also going to talk about the biggest flop in entertainment this year and a whole world of entertainment we haven't really covered before. That'll be a third item, I think.
We're also going to talk about review bombing as a practice, you know, when people sort of pile on and make things have really bad Rotten Tomatoes scores and IMDb scores, and the new practice of being able to bet on Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like a top of a very slippery slope to me.
If it exists, you can bet on it. So,
Yeah.
Right, it's pretty hard on IMDb to get a 9.2 rating if you're a drama overall. And there are a few shows that are on 9.2, and they are The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, The Wire, Game of Thrones, and another show that you've probably never heard of, but it's got 200 million viewers worldwide. It's season 5 is in production right now. It's got its own dedicated fan convention every year. It's got very high production values. It's character driven. People binge it. It is called The Chosen, and it is about the life of Jesus Christ. It's based on the Gospels.
Wow. Based on the book?
Based on part of the book.
Was it adapted by the author, or did they bring in Will Smith to do it?
No. Now, listen, it's created by this guy called Dallas Jenkins. Now, Dallas Jenkins, actually his dad...
Tucker Jenkins.
His dad wrote some books called... a series of books which were again religious, but they were kind of blockbuster series of novels based on kind of the Book of Revelation, and they were called Left Behind. Anyway, so they sold like millions of copies, and they were a big thing back in the day. But he did grow up in an evangelical community whose main engagement with Hollywood was to boycott the occasional thing it did, and that was it. Okay, but he loved movies and loved TV and loved all those things, and eventually, and he kept thinking, I can, maybe I can kind of break through and do it in some way.
The Son, this is.
By the way, he has directed every single episode of this thing, which the scale of it is quite extraordinary. Anyway, but he gets a deal with Jason Blum, who's a producer about whom we will have to talk on another occasion.
He's a guy who does a lot of like low budget horror things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Dallas Jenkins does a sort of Christian rom-com with him, but it bombs, and he's thinking, oh my God, that was my last big shot. Nothing's going to happen to me now. He's on the treadmill, binge watching The Wire, and he thinks, oh my God, you know what would be amazing? Because there's loads of great characters. Something like this, but about the life of Christ. So whoever does that is going to do really, really well. Anyway, then he suddenly thinks, well, actually, maybe I should have a go.
Yeah,
and
come on, Dallas.
He gets distribution and funding from this company called Angel Studios, which I might talk a bit more later.
Angel Studios. That's a bit on the nose.
They're now in dispute, these two entities. Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, this much success inevitably in Hollywood.
They need a third party to come and sort it out.
They need a Deus Ex Machina.
Yes, they need a Deus Ex Machina or a Holy Ghost.
Yeah. Angel say, why don't we do crowdfunding? And he's like, crowdfunding, what? But that's stupid and it never would work. Anyway, the first time of asking, they get $11 million. And he's like, all right, okay, that's quite good.
No wonder Russell Brand has turned to Jesus.
Yeah. But the first season, they say it's low budget, but it doesn't look it. You can watch it now. And by the way, if you want to see this in the UK, you can see it on Prime. It pops up on all sorts of different services. As I say, it's had 4 seasons out now, and the 5th is in production. Anyhow, season 4, like the budget was 40 million, so it's much bigger. They've got their own backlot now, but they still crowdfund. And originally, it was distributed through the Angel Studios, kind of like a desktop app.
Right.
The season premiere of their season in 2021 was watched live on this app by something like 770,000 people. And the open, something like Mayor of Easttown, which, by the way, ended up winning the Emmy, was watched by like about 900,000. So, and think how much coverage there was. By the way, you never read any mainstream media coverage of the show.
What do you want from me? Follow me.
In a way, it's like The Crown, I think.
Yes.
He's huge.
Crown of Thorns.
The Crown, because you all know where we're going with it. So they're playing it out over 7 seasons, right?
Yes,
so,
we know how it's going to end.
So season 5 is going to be all of Holy Week, apart from the day of crucifixion. Season 6 is the entire season is the one day of the crucifixion.
Whoa.
And season 7 is the aftermath.
They are really eking it out, aren't they?
Well,
at that point?
you know, like... you know, 7. You've got to have 7 seasons or something, Richard, as you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, the characters are great. Okay, so
I was going to say you are genuinely a fan of this show.
I just think it's really.
About
I'm sort of fan because it's a curiosity, but it's really good and it's well done, and there's lots of funny little bits in it.
Yeah.
It's just odd because when people think of these stories, they do honestly think of these kind of characters as a sort of stained glass window and things like that, which is what he said. And he was trying to make this real. And he's very funny about things. Dallas Jenkins is the producer, like about the character of Jesus. He says, yeah, I mean, we couldn't really make him the main character. He doesn't learn anything. He doesn't grow and he doesn't struggle. I mean, I feel like he's going to struggle in season 6.
Yeah.
But the point is, I get it, okay?
Yeah.
But he's so heavily influenced by other shows like in episode 1, the pilot of the first season, you don't
Genesis.
You don't meet him till the very, very end of the episode, and it's deliberately because of how he did it. They did it with President Bartlett in the start of the Western, because you're trying to build the ensemble. So you're trying to say, right, Simon, he's a street fighter, and he said, oh, he's such a street fighter. He's got such a massive arc. Like he's definitely the James Kirk of the piece.
What about Noah? He's got a massive arc.
Well, he's got massive.
He's got the biggest
We're
arc
going
of
to
all.
talk about the potential chosen verse in a minute, actually.
Okay.
The thing about it is that, Jesus was always like, when Robert Powell played Jesus of Nazareth, he thought he shouldn't blink because it was
Really?
just,
It was disrespectful.
it was just like he should be so otherworldly, which is not a huge... But part of the evangelical modern Christian movement in America is like you have to believe these stories actually were real and happened. And there are lots of contradictions clearly in the Gospels. This has allowed people, he's kind of built this world where you're like, but that's why one Gospel tells you this and that's another. I see, it's the two narrators, and it's really, he's
clever.
tried to make it really, really real. And people are told to watch this show by their pastor, or people are told, but it's very, and it's probably never going to get an Emmy, but he's very funny when he talks about it.
Who plays Jesus?
This guy called Jonathan Rumi. Even the first series looks good, but by the time you get to the fourth season, it's obviously so much better. It's got even higher production values.
So he's played by Jonathan Rumia.
Jonathan Rumi. What he's trying to do is something really quite unusual, and he doesn't mind now. He thinks, I always thought about getting an Oscar and an Emmy, and I don't care anymore. But all the good things are happening. But there's something about sort of faith-based entertainment which we don't. I say we because I am not a consumer of it particularly at all. I have consumed this, but I'm not in general. But what we kind of forget is that like faith-based artists have been selling out arenas in the US for forever in every genre, not just like, evangelical music, in country, in all sorts, in rock, in all sorts of things. And you've got artists
There's
like...
a lot of money in it.
Yeah, Amy Grant, Lecrae, Need to Breathe, all these people who constantly sell out massive arenas. But there is also the sense that kind of Hollywood has fallen and that any entertainment that comes from that is degenerate. And he has managed to thread this needle. And it's sort of amazing what he's done. And he's now trying to build it all out and create, I don't want to call it the chosen verse, but I think we're all thinking that. So now he's trying to pitch all these other shows and saying, look, Moses was like a reluctant Tony Soprano. He was the head of the largest family and he didn't want to be.
Oh, that's
Noah's
good.
Ark. The story of Noah is basically parenthood on a boat, says Dallas Jenkins.
Hard to film Noah's Ark. I think that has to be an animation.
Well, yeah,
I would say.
He wants to do an animation based on The Chosen as well. He wants to have this whole massive mega empire. And the dispute with Angel Studios are quite interesting because they are one of those people who operate in the Christian entertainment space, and every now and then they get a massive hit. And that thing, Sound of Freedom, it's the story of this guy called Tim Ballard, who is a government agent turned vigilante, who he has to rescue lots of children from traffickers. So it's played by Jim Caviezel.
Okay, and he was Passion of Christ, wasn't he, Jim Caviezel as well? Yeah. He's got form.
Yes, he's got form, but he's now QAnon as was this guy. And that movie did amazingly. It opened second to Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Wow.
Okay, and it took 184 million at the box office. The third weekend, it was still third behind Barbie and Oppenheimer. Okay, so again, we don't really talk about this, but that was a real sort of. So they're always trying to get these kind of breakouts. Anyway, there is now a sort of dispute. But another thing that Dallas Jenkins does, which is quite funny, is that people are so into being. One of the ways he crowdfunds is people pay $1,000 to be an extra.
That's a great idea.
They pay to be in it.
Yeah. But I think I sense from the way you talk about it, you do have an admiration for the way that Dallas Jenkins has gone about this. He has actually done it with a slight twinkle in his eye. So it absolutely appeals to the marketplace he's trying to appeal to. But you can watch it as a punter as well.
Yes, but you're basically, he's got to compete with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And also people are used to seeing things like that, and people are used to seeing these very textured things with lots of great supporting characters and these kind of sprawling stories. And, you know, the IP is free, as we've previously said.
Well, it is absolutely. And also there's sort of no shortage of stories as well
No.
that you can go in any different direction with. Is it the sort of thing that you think might be a fun, ironic watch for a group of students?
I think it's too good for that. No, I don't think. No. It is. I mean,
It's just
even the
good.
first season, which people have say, oh, it's not nearly as good as how it gets, which is, you know, you can see, obviously, like anyone writing. And as I say, he's directed every episode and everybody becomes much better when you've made that much TV. But it's no, I don't think you can sit there and laugh at it at all. It's really good. And it's dark, you know, it's dark. There's quite kind of lots of sort of dark stuff in it.
There's everyone, myself included, sitting at home now going, just at the start of this, I didn't think I was going to watch it. And even 5 minutes in, I thought, well, maybe I'll just sort of watch 2 minutes of it. And now I feel like I'm going to have to just watch 5 seasons of this thing.
Well, yeah, or just watch like episode 1 and then watch episode 1 of season 3 and episode 1 of season 4 or something like that. Go and have but if you really don't think you're going to watch it, which I can totally understand, there is just simply too much television, but it is interesting.
And presumably huge around the world.
It's very, very big around the world.
Certain markets probably more resistant than others.
Yes,
but...
so yes, absolutely. Certain markets more resistant than others. I don't think it's massive in the Middle East, but it's, you know...
Do you know what? It probably is. Do you know what I mean? That's the sort of thing, isn't it? People go, do you know what? Actually, when you really look into it.
When you dig into the data on the desktop app. But it is a hugely, and as I say, you know, I'm not a religious person, but it's a very interesting story and it's very well told.
I'd say you weren't a religious person. I mean, recently, you have changed quite a lot in the last few days. Like when we were at the RTS things and you kept telling me to show mercy.
I did tell you to show mercy. I just felt that at that point, there's a little line in maybe Die Hard 3 where Jeremy Irons has to say to this woman after she's completely gunned down this person for so long, I think he's dead, my dear. And I just wanted to say, I think that's enough, my dear.
Do you know what? I'm so relieved you've stopped quoting the Gospels and you're back to Die Hard 3. That's the Marina we know and love.
That's
She's
my
back,
Gospels.
everybody.
This episode is brought to you by Sky, proud partners of The Rest is Entertainment, where you can watch unmissable shows, including The Penguin, starring Academy Award nominee Colin Farrell.
I know. Now, Colin Farrell was the Penguin in the Batman movie, and genuinely you wouldn't have a clue it was him.
It really shows the magical power of makeup and prosthetics.
Incredible performance. Now, in this story, Gotham City is in ruin, in total chaos. The Penguin, aka Oscorp, is out to fill the power vacuum in the city and take control of its criminal underworld. Come on, man.
Not only does it star Colin Farrell, there is a return for Kristen Milioti.
Oh, I like her.
Yeah, she plays Sophia Falcone, the daughter of the Penguin's former boss. You might have seen Kristen in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Brilliant cast.
And great world building. Tense, violent, dark, always darker and grittier. The show looks like everything we got in The Batman, and then it kicks it up a notch.
Now, in this 8-part series, it goes deeper into the dark depths of Gotham's criminal underworld, and we'll get to see how it all plays out.
The Penguin, on Sky from the 20th of September.
From a huge unexpected hit, we've still got a huge flop to come, but we're going to talk about Rotten Tomatoes, review bombing, etc. now.
Yes, review bombing. This is the practice of, I don't know, is it trolling? Is it clicktivism? Is it campaigning?
Clicktivism.
We do traditionally see it, if you look at the top review bombed products, in a male-dominated fan space where a woman has been given some lines. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but, you know, Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. I mean, that she has to talk about the haters in every interview now. But
yeah, when Mary Magdalene turned up in The Chosen.
Yeah, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, The Last Jedi, Ghostbusters, the one with the women.
Yes, that's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, so as I say, I'm noticing a trend in the review bomb things.
Because star ratings are incredibly important, especially fan star ratings. So you have, Rotten Tomatoes is the thing we're going to talk about mainly. And that's this website. It was started in 1998. It's originally started purely as a website for rating Jackie Chan films. Did you know that? That's what it started as. These 3 guys set it up, and they just were obsessed with Jackie Chan, so they set up this site.
That's so much better than rating women like Facebook. Well done, guys.
Well done, guys.
Thank you.
It was just
I'm sorry
Jackie
that
Chan
some
related.
people have used your site for ill now, but
but then 10 years later they sold it for an undisclosed sum, which I imagine was quite a lot. But it's a huge deal in the industry. It's a huge deal for publicists in the industry. It's a huge deal for the studios. And if you can get verified fresh, which is you have to be 75% of 80 reviews have to be positive ones. Yeah. And that essentially, it's a big deal. A lot of people use Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people decide what movies to go.
30% of people check it before they go out. And this whole thing of, speaking of gatekeepers, of movie critics being the gatekeepers to all these sort of things, those big time critics died or they retired, and they haven't really been replaced. And this site has become more and more and more and more important.
And alongside the critics, there's also the public are allowed to rate things, and you have to have proof that you've seen a film.
Yeah.
And for the public, you have to be, it's 90% is the threshold to be certified fresh, because the public like things more than critics like them. So if you're above 90%, you're certified fresh. Below, you're not. And if you're below, I think 60%, you are rotten. And you can see how that can very easily be gamed, as you say. If people are upset about the fact that the imaginary Ghostbusters are suddenly women, you can imagine you can just go there and give it a terrible review, and if 1,000 of you are on the same Discord server or Reddit site and you all do the same thing, then it gets down under 60%. So it's a very common thing to bomb these things, as it is, by the way, in Amazon book ratings, which we will get to. So that's very common. But you have now started to be able to bet on a movie's Rotten Tomatoes score, and a lot of people are making a lot of money from it. Kalshi is a site where you can gamble on pretty much everything, crypto, all sorts of stuff, but you can now also bet on box office, and you can bet on Rotten Tomatoes scores.
It's like a form of tracking, isn't it,
Yeah.
really? Because I looked on and I thought, Joker Folie à Deux, now that comes out on October the 2nd, 54% chance that it will get an above 60 rating.
Ooh.
Gladiator, 63% chance it will be above 79. There's a fortnight where everything's coming out all at once, and it will be an absolute sort of gunfight to see what does well in those couple of weeks. But I was interested to go on the site and see all the other things, but apparently it's taking in like 300,000, maybe more a week.
It takes in a lot. And here's the interesting thing. The thing it tells us about entertainment is the people who can really game it. The people, you get professional gamblers in any sphere who are the people who understand how to gamble and then get banned from all the sites. Don't forget the bookies always win. So we're going to talk about gambling a lot. We are not recommending gambling. I was reading about some of the people who are making quite a lot of money on it. And they say, well, here are some of the things that we look at. We look at how many test screenings there are, because you can really tell whether a movie is doing well if you keep testing it in different markets, because they're building a kind of, they're building some momentum for a film. We look at who has reviewed it early. And there are some very tame reviewers, and they get named in a couple of articles. They said they've had 2 years and they have not given a bad review to anything. And they're saying this is in 2 years where Borderlands and Madame Web has come out. So if we see the early reviews coming in and we see they're from pet reviewers, we know that this is a bad movie. So however, if we see suddenly they're giving it to one of the big dogs, then you think, okay, this one's going to be good. So these are the things that they are looking at. They're looking at the tactics of the PR industry and the tactics of the industry and the tactics of the studios, understanding how a studio tries to hide a poor movie or tries to sort of spring it on people by surprise, how they try and build a movie they've got which they know is great but hasn't had much publicity. And so that's how you kind of work out if a movie is going to do well with the critics and do well with the public as well. And I just thought that's the thing. As soon as there's absolutely no point going on Kalshi and betting, because all the professionals are doing it already.
Yeah.
So essentially, you've got to be cleverer than someone who spends their entire life looking at the numbers of test screenings in Wichita.
I do think it's slightly speculation as entertainment. I would honestly much rather spend a really long time thinking what exactly I think Joker Folie à Deux will get than I will actually want to watch it. Not that I don't want to go to the cinema with the incels, but I...
Going back to Rotten Tomatoes for a moment, it's fascinating. The one thing, I said just then that the public tend to rate things higher than critics, which I think we sort of intrinsically understand. I imagine that The Chosen does very well with the public and less so with the critics. There are two areas where the critics score things higher than the general public. So two areas that critics prefer to the general public, and they are documentaries, just all documentaries, and dark comedies. And that's why Hollywood is terrified of dark comedies, because they always do. It's like TV. They do brilliantly. They get written about everywhere. And the viewing public just goes, no,
thank you.
I guess it's admirable. But, everyone you meet loves them and watches them. And, there's stuff in the broadsheets. But the general public are going, yeah, I don't know, it's a comedy. I just wondered if it could be right, really funny. Why don't we just make that
Could
much,
I have a
much
joke in my
funnier?
this obsession with people putting jokes in comedy, Richard.
I know. It's
Where
crazy.
is it going to get you?
It will not last. I was looking. Do you mind if I put you through a top three?
Yes, please.
I
Okay,
know.
fine.
Often we do these on the question and answer. I'm going to do top three here. The top three rated films of all time on Rotten Tomatoes, and that is mixing up critic scores with the public scores. I'll give you 3 and 2, and we'll see if we can guess what number 1 is.
Okay.
So the third best movie of all time, according to Rotten Tomatoes critics and punters, is Casablanca. Number 2 is The Godfather. Number 1, any idea? Any idea at home? Have a little. I don't think anyone's going to get this in a million years.
I wondered if it's like something like an Adam Sandler film or something ridiculous. No, but seriously.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It is not. It is L.A. Confidential.
Which I absolutely love.
There you go. You and literally everybody else in the entire world.
How interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
I absolutely love it. You haven't seen that, please watch it. It's so good. Curtis Hanson, who I think wrote it as well. And it's got great people in it. And Kevin Spacey, I don't know if we're allowed to refer to him as great anymore, but anyway, he's very good in it.
God, it's amazing. It's still the most popular film of all time.
That's extraordinary.
So that's Rotten Tomatoes. As I say, it's a very interesting place. It's sort of part owned by some of the studios in the same way that everything is owned by everyone. They were bought by, I think, ING, who were then bought by someone else, who were then bought by someone else. So Warner's
and I think
now
some
owns...
tickets firms got some stake in it.
Yes,
I mean,
Fandango. And actually that you have to buy your tickets through Fandango to be able to put you think, oh yeah, listen, I get it. Listen, everyone's making a buck. I understand it. But it is a fascinating site to look at. And, you can go trawling on that for hours and hours and hours. I saw a brilliant thing this week, statistically proving who the worst actor of all time is via Rotten Tomatoes and box office and their pay.
By the medium of science.
Yeah, exactly. And it was brilliant. And you had to have you have to have starred in at least 6 movies, and it looked at what their budget was and how little they made and all that kind of stuff. And it was Madonna was top of that list.
I think it's fair.
Yeah.
I've seen all the work.
Yeah.
Sometimes more than once, sometimes sober.
The guy did it. He said, I absolutely set out doing this knowing for a fact that number 1 would be Steven Seagal, and I was gutted to see he was only 8th. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, because your Amazon and Goodreads ratings as well are a really, really huge deal. And in the sort of first ones, when, the first kind of 10, the first 20, there's always 2 or 3 which are like 1 star, and you're like, oh no, you got a 1 star. You sort of like through your fingers, you look at it, and it always goes, the postman delivered it next door, and I still haven't received it. And you think, don't give me a 1 star for that. Give your postman a 1 star.
I haven't opened it yet, but the packaging was chipped, or the packaging was torn.
Exactly. Like someone had obviously ordered the large type one and said, the type is so large. I didn't order the large type one, but this one, and you think, I think you have ordered the large type one, is what you've done there. Anyway, that's what happens. That's what happens on Amazon. But Amazon reviews incredibly important for new authors, especially if someone's got a debut out, something like that. If you can leave reviews on bookshop.org or on Amazon or anywhere you can leave reviews, Waterstones, then do so. It's incredibly, incredibly helpful for the writer. Only if you've enjoyed something. And if you haven't enjoyed something, shh. And if the postman has forgotten your book, really, that is on the Royal Mail.
Yeah,
I would say.
There are other portals for your distress.
Exactly. Talking of portals of distress, we move on to our final thing.
Oh, my gosh.
So a couple of things happened last week. Firstly, we were talking about The Lion King, the musical, being the single most profitable artistic endeavour of all time.
Yes.
Someone said that to me, and even at the time I thought, I'm not absolutely certain that's right. And then I was talking to my son, who's a huge video gamer, and he was said, oh, you should do something about Concord. I hadn't heard of Concord. And Concord is a live service game. So we're going to talk about live service games. And it's been one of the biggest flops of all time. Concord. It's one of these things they spent 8 years bringing it out.
It's a Sony game.
It's a Sony game.
Developed by another studio, but it's a Sony game, and they've spent 200 million on it.
And came out, and it had about 600 people. So a live service game is one of those games. When we were youngsters, you would have a console, you would buy a cartridge for that console, you buy, Sonic the Hedgehog, or you buy FIFA or Tiger Woods Golf, Colin McRae Rally. You would play it, and if you were lucky and liked it the next year, there'd be Colin McRae Rally 1997 would come out, and you would then play that again. And that was the economics of the video game industry for a long time. They would sell you a console, slightly under cost as a loss leader. They would then sell you a series of games at £40 each and try and make you, update them once a year. And then this concept of live service games came in. or games as a service, which essentially are games that you play online against a load of other people at the same time. So Fortnite Battle Royale would be a perfect example of that.
And crucially, they have constant updates. They're constantly world building and more pieces of content are being released. They would love you to be sort of hooked to them, to that. It's a whole commitment.
Key. It's like an entire shop. So if you've got Grand Theft Auto, the online version of that, they are constantly updating things. They're constantly building new parts of the map. There's constant new characters, new storylines, there's new vehicles, new weapons, all sorts of things. And you either subscribe to a lot of these games, or you subscribe to the console, or you are using micropayments to buy things to make that game better. And this is one of the most ludicrously lucrative things in the entire history of entertainment. This is why I don't think Lion King the musical is the most profitable thing in the world. Right. I think Fortnite Battle Royale is the single most profitable thing in the entire history of entertainment. They reckon it's made about $27 billion now.
Also,
for Epic
we should
Games.
say that almost all of the Chinese gaming market are these games.
Yeah.
And I was reading that some Chinese Politburo official had said something slightly, had looked askance at the idea of live service games and maybe they were too addictive. And they knocked like billions and billions off the share prices of Tencent and NetEase and those big kind of companies. And so they removed the official. He's never been heard of again. So it's really,
There you go. There it is.
So
these things are now genuinely a huge phenomenon. And those of us who got into gaming in the 80s or 90s, who perhaps have lagged behind, this is what gaming is now. And firstly, you really, really, really want to have a live service hit. So Candy Crush would be a live service game that's made $20 million. Grand Theft Auto Online is, of course, that's made $10 billion. I mean, it's a huge, huge market. But as you say, the whole thing about these games is they're whole worlds and they're incredibly addictive. And actually, the thing that is really constricting new entrants into the market is people are running out of time. I mean, these things can take up an awful lot of your time. There's a small amount of games. Fortnite would be one, Battle Royale, Grand Theft Auto, Minecraft, League of Legends, Roblox. There's research that said they take up 25% of all gaming time, these games. They're all over 6 years old. So they're all, it's beginning to sound a lot like TV and films. Yeah. The older stuff, the legacy stuff is just lasting and lasting. Have these incredible updates all the time. They've got people hooked in. People are spending their money on this stuff. And so it's very, very hard to enter the market. Now, some people are entering the market. There's been big games this year. Helldivers 2 was big this year. But the one that came out very recently, which is Concord, 8 years is taken. I mean,
to develop.
Tens of millions of pounds.
They think $200 million.
And here's just an example of what you would get for a normal live service game. So 9:30 this morning, Counter-Strike had 634,000 consecutive players. So 634,000.
On Steam.
Yeah, on Steam, just playing Counter-Strike this morning. The most who played Concord concurrently was 697.
This is so wild because that the most who were playing on those first days of Black Myth Wukong, which by the way were 2.5 million concurrent, right? And you also had to pay $40 or whatever it costs in the UK
for Concord.
For Concord, which I think that is absolutely extraordinary. And they have to put this into perspective. They have withdrawn it from the market completely.
Within a week.
It will not come back and people are being refunded.
I had a chat with George Osborne, not that George Osborne, the brilliant video games journalist. And if you are interested in video games at all, or if your kids are and you want to know about the industry, his video games industry memo is really, really, really well worth signing up for, because it tells you every single behind-the-scenes story. And he was telling me all about this because it's real risk and reward stuff, live service games, because you're bringing out Concord. You've already spent a huge amount of money and 8 years doing this. You've also had to bring on an entire staff, because the whole point of live service games is you are constantly updating them, you're constantly maintaining them, you are constantly having to be across them. So you've got a whole team in an office who are looking forward to this sort of going crazy and having kind of 3, 5, 10 years of looking after this game, and they're out of work after about 3 days. So all of that industry is gone as well. They thought that the biggest entertainment flop this year was going to be Suicide Squad, also bought out a live service game, and that absolutely crashed and burned as well. They reckon that lost 200 million. So this whole world of video games, when we talk about the film industry and we talk about the TV industry and the numbers that are involved, the video game industry, actually, the upper numbers are just bigger than anything that films
totally
could
agree.
dream of.
But we don't. If you try and look at the coverage of this story, there's lots of stuff in sort of specialist publications. And there is something in Metro. One story I could see, so like in Metro. I would argue, and this is a big swing, but this could be the biggest entertainment flop of all time, okay?
Yeah.
Because it has got no money.
Yeah.
You would say with like, it was Heaven's Gate or one of these, some big flop movie. This is the equivalent of this is Sony, right? So
Yeah.
they spent 200 million on this, right? Okay, No Way Home, Spider-Man, No Way Home, also Sony with Marvel, but it's Sony. It's their property. They would spend 200 million on that. That's like only 697 people going to see that movie.
Yeah.
That would have been like on the front pages of newspapers, like this enormous
100%.
swing by this company, and it's completely failed. It's absolutely mega. It's like it's beyond. And that's. If it did fail, you'd still think, okay, but it's going to make some money back on streaming. And people, you know, there's always other ways in other branches of entertainment. This has been completely withdrawn from the market. There are clearly no plans to bring it back. That is a write-off, and they are refunding. So I think that there is an argument that this is maybe the biggest flop of all time, and it's interesting, but people don't cover it. Again, we don't. Yeah. It's just not covered.
But in the same way that, you know, the absolute other end of the scale, so Fortnite Battle Royale. So Fortnite was a collaborative game. So Epic Games, which again, like a lot of these things started out in someone's garage and had an incredible sort of games engine that it had, but built lots of games. So it was doing well, Epic Games. I don't want anyone to worry about Epic Games. They called themselves Epic Games, by the way. Originally, they were called Epic Mega Games because it was just one guy in his garage, and he thought, he said, I thought it made me sound like a bigger deal. That I was called Epic Mega Games. And then ironically, when he did get pretty massive, he thought, I just dropped the mega because I thought we were already pretty big, so Epic Games would do us. And it was as late as, I think, 2018, 2017, 2018. So lots of people were playing Fortnite already. Lots of people's kids would have played Fortnite. That they came up with the Battle Royale version of it, which is you're dropped into an environment, 100 people. You can team up with 2 or 3 people if you need to. And the map gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and all you have to do is survive and be the last person alive. And you can collaborate, you can build things. So it's an incredibly smart, interesting game. And that's the thing that went absolutely crazy and did become, I think, probably the biggest entertainment proposition of the century. For sure, this thing, Fortnite Battle Royale. And we don't hear an awful lot about it. And, you know, you can play Battle Royale tournaments with a $3 million prize. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. You know, there's huge celeb tournaments and stuff like that as well. So if you want to make $26 billion, then I would say that a live service game would be the way to go. If you want to lose $200 million, it turns out that that looks to be pretty much the same thing.
But Sony, I would imagine if we could have the hack of these executives, like there wasn't, you know, in 2014 when the Sony Pictures executives were hacked and we got to read all their emails. I would love to, I mean, you know, not their personal stuff, but I would love to read the internal discussions right now on what they are saying about this, because this is a genuine calamity.
Exactly, but weirdly, other than, as you say, in the trade press, they're slightly getting away with it. But I think the bigger picture here is we talk a lot on this show about, you know, the battle for eyeballs and the battle certainly for a younger generation and how you get people to go back to the cinema and how you get people to watch linear TV, all of these things. And there is this industry which no one ever really talks about, which is taking up tens of hours a week. And I'm underestimating, of a huge proportion of a younger audience, and that audience, by the way, getting older with these games as well and continuing to play them. Every single hour played one of these games, and these games, by the way, are brilliant. And there's plenty of parents I know who think their kids play too many video games, and then they start watching and go, oh, now I see. Now I see why you're doing it. You know, some incredible stuff out there. The creativity is through the roof. You know, some of the storytelling is incredible.
Oh my God, my son's doing one at the moment called Ghost of Tsushima, and it's like an amazing movie.
Yeah, it's insane. But you have to kind of go, well, why do you think they will go and see your film? Why is it that you think that they're going to watch your game show? Why is it that you think they're going to turn onto a linear television channel? They're not, because this stuff is out there and this stuff is being funded. It's been made by an incredible generation of creatives. And listen, there's a question around its addictiveness, because it definitely is addictive.
Well, I think it is. And that's the trouble. When you're trying to get them to switch to your live service game, you're trying to persuade a sort of crack addict to become a Coke addict.
Yes, you really are.
Say, hey, this is much more expensive. And, but it's like, no, I already have this other thing. That quote we said before, when the guy from Coca-Cola said, my competition isn't Pepsi, it's water. And then when whoever it was at Netflix who said, our competition isn't with other streamers, it's with sleep. And there's always those sort of things. And in a sense, there is a sort of, you reach capacity, and you obviously have a lot invested in the world. As you say, those legacy ones do well simply because the world building is enormous and you have put a lot into it.
Yeah, exactly. And they're looked after very, very well. And, people that, and it's like you don't have to wait 18 months for a sequel. The sequel is constant. It's like constantly evolving. My son watches almost no television, I would say. He plays a huge amount of video games. And I genuinely find it fascinating, because he talks about video games in the same way that I used to talk about television. And he's interested in them in the same way that I'm interested in television. And he understands all the new things in the same way. And, as I say, he was the one who said, why are you not talking about Concord? And I was like, oh no, why aren't we talking about Concord? And of course you have to, because as you say, it's an absolutely massive story. It's just, the way we talk about entertainment these days, this stuff tends to be relegated. And I think, and as I say, George Osborne's memo is such a brilliant, again, not that one, is such a great way. If you really want to catch up quickly on that world and the extraordinary stuff going on, then I'd really recommend that. But yeah, so biggest entertainment thing ever. I think Fortnite Battle Royale beats Lion King the musical. But you'd be happy to have 5% of either of them. Yeah. Wouldn't you?
0.5. I'd be very happy.
Can I give a recommendation?
Please do.
I don't know if you were a fan of WandaVision. Yes. Not One Direction, WandaVision, WANDA Vision. The follow-up, Agatha All Along, has just come out. Show run by Jack Schaefer again. He's done an amazing job, and it's fantastic. It's on Disney. That's us done, I think. See you on Thursday, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you Thursday.